Sonic and Pinball have always been connected in some way. The main idea of rolling into a ball and speeding down slopes seems like it would work perfectly when mixed with Pinball. And for the most part, it does. And that's great! Gimmicks like these that complement the base of Sonic gameplay is exactly what the games need. Only problem is that now it's practically the only gimmick Sonic Team uses. Now, you'd think Sega would fully capitalize on this concept and just make a full Pinball Sonic game, right? Yeah. There's no punchline, they just did. So today I'll be playing through every single one, including dedicated pinball modes, and rating them here on this tier list. Let's go! Before we start rating the actual pinball games, let's take a look to see where the trend started in the first place. Sonic the Hedgehog was released in 1991 for the Sega Genesis, or Mega Drive depending on where you live. In the third area of the game, Spring Yard Zone, we can see some of this pinball inspiration start to take shape. It's a lively city filled with bumpers, springs, more bumpers, bumpers. Did I mention the bumpers? It's nothing special at all, but it's a decent concept that would get fully realized in the sequel, Sonic 2. Casino Night Zone, the fourth level of Sonic 2, really went all out with the themes presented in Spring Yard. It's a giant casino with flippers, bumpers, launchers, springs, gambling, everything you'd expect from pinball. It was great and would serve as the template for all pinball-themed levels in the future. However, before Sonic 3 was set to release, a team from Sega of America was hard at work at a new Sonic game for the Genesis. It wasn't going to be your average classic Sonic title, no. This was a whole new concept, something never seen before, something revolutionary. It's just pinball. Sonic Spinball! Some call it a game, I call it a tumor. Released in 1993, Sonic Spinball was meant to be a little side game to satisfy customers until Sonic 3 came out. Booting the game up, our story begins as Robotnik is capturing animals and enslaving them in his new fortress. Sonic doesn't like a single bit of this, so he flies to the island and goes on a journey to free the creatures. Conveniently, Robotnik thought it would be a great idea to make his defense system a freaking pinball machine. So our journey begins. There are 4 stages here in Sonic Spinball, each one progressing in difficulty as you go on. Toxic Caves is our first level, and it's alright. It's a simple stage with a decent layout and some great music. The boss haunts my nightmares though. Next up is Lava Powerhouse, and this stage sucks! This one introduces the gimmick of steam valves, and while they can shoot you up to higher areas, they are really janky to use. More nightmare fuel later, and now it's time for the machine. Yeah, this stage is even worse. It's huge and extremely easy to get sent back to the start. Not to mention the gimmicks they introduce here just aren't fun to interact with at all. After the boss, it's time for the final area, the showdown. It's really long. The level design is actually balls, and if you miss too many hits during the boss, it will send you back to the beginning of the stage. After slogging through the final boss, it's over. Yeah, Sonic Spinball is interesting. The physics are garbage, the level design is mediocre at best, and the bosses are terrible. Now, I could see why someone would like this game, but it just isn't for me personally. C tier. For the Genesis? Oh, you thought we were done with Sonic Spinball? You poor, innocent soul. So, Sonic Spinball didn't just release for the Genesis, no. Like some other Sonic games on there, it also received a port to Sega's wannabe Game Boy, the Game Gear. Now, Sonic 1, 2, and Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine all got some half-decent ports on the handheld. Sonic Spinball, though? This game sucks. I'm not gonna beat around the bush. The physics in this game. Oh my gosh. Sonic seemingly gains speed out of nowhere. The spin dash is super finicky to use. And the slope physics are somehow worse than Sonic 4! Not to mention the level design is awful. Everything looks the exact same, so it's really difficult to tell where you are in this purgatory. I just couldn't with this game. After beating the first stage, you're transported to the Sahara Desert for the bonus game. What am I doing here? Yeah, I think that's enough Spinball for now. As a remake for the Game Gear, I guess it's serviceable, but it's just a worse version of a game that already isn't that good in the first place. D tier. After Spinball came and went, Pinball began to take a back seat in the franchise. Of course, elements will be referenced in games like Sonic 3 and Sonic R, but Pinball itself was being phased out. Until 1999, when Sonic Adventure released to the masses, this was the 3D evolution fans were wanting from this franchise for years, and although it expanded the formula, it still found a way to put this freaking gimmick in. Casinopolis is the third action stage in Sonic Adventure and has a pretty unique concept compared to the other levels. Sonic needs 400 rings to complete the stage. Of course, the most efficient way to get them is by gambling. You have 4 ways to gain money here. You can explore the lobby and bash into slot machines to grab rings, you can drop down to the trash chute and get loads of rings down there, or you can try your hand at the 2 pinball tables featured here, Slots Pinball and Cards Pinball. At their cores, both are just classic pinball tables, but they each have their own unique gimmicks to separate them from each other. Let's begin with Slots. It's a Sonic-themed table with a couple of chutes, bumpers, and the main attraction, the slot machine. If you're able to launch Sonic into this special chute, then you'll have the chance to gain extra rings by matching all 3 in the slot machine. A cool thing about this is that each combination not only gives you extra rings, but also a perk, such as Tails is blocking the bottom of the board, or Eggman's making you go into debt. It adds some nice variety to the game. Now, I know what you're all thinking. How are the physics? Well, they're alright? While they aren't nearly as bad as Spinballs, they can still feel really clunky. There are tons of moments where Sonic just slows to a crawl, or hits the wrong side of a bumper and flies into the stratosphere. Overall though, the physics are serviceable. On to Cards Pinball now. Unlike Slots, this table is themed after the cult classic Sega Saturn game, Nights into Dreams. Instead of pressing your luck for slots now, you'll have to match pairs of cards to score bonuses, and by getting good hands you can rack in tons of rings. There's even a hidden area you can discover with even more cards to collect. Altogether, these 2 boards are the best pinball games in the Sonic series so far, though that isn't really saying much. B tier. After the failure of the Dreamcast and Sega's shift to be a third-party developer, they started releasing games on Nintendo systems. Both adventure games got ports on the GameCube, and even the Game Boy Advance got the spin-off series Sonic Advance. However, 2 other titles were also being developed on the GBA, Sonic Battle, and what we're here for, a little game called Sonic Pinball Party. Starting off with the story, Eggman is back and has taken over Casinopolis, kidnapping all the animals visiting and turning them into robots. And the only way we can save them is by joining the Egg Cup Pinball Tournament. Of course. Our first match is against Knuckles. You can win if you get 10 million points. Oh gosh. Starting off, I'll give the team some credit. The pinball physics are pretty much perfect here. There isn't any awkward slowdown, clipping, space travel, etc. The music too is also surprisingly great. It's a bunch of GBA remixes of past Sonic games and other Sega franchises. Just banger tracks all around. Now for the gameplay. Beginning on the first table, things are looking pretty decent. Wait, all saved? What does that mean? Feature hole is now open. I don't think I needed to know. Why am I collecting rings? How does this help me? Why is the board Tails now? Defeat Eggman. Wait, there are bosses in this game? Shut up! This game is sensory overload. There is so much going on that you just can't keep track of. Not to mention the ludicrous point requirement. I couldn't even get past the first stage. Trust me, I got really close to beating it, but I just didn't have the energy to retry. If you're willing to put up with the terrible table designs and complete lack of control, then maybe Sonic Pinball Party is the game for you. For me though, this game is awful. E tier. After this, Sonic Pinball content died down for a bit. Sure, we had a couple pinball-themed zones like Casino Park, but no actual pinball modes. Until 2010. At this point, Sonic was in a pretty bad place in the public eye. Sonic 06 had shattered the goodwill of the series, and Unleashed, while having a cult following today, didn't do anything to help at the time. The series needed something to stay afloat. Anything! And what did Sega do? They gave us Sonic 4. Now, at the time, it was received pretty well. Nowadays, it's one of the most boring games I've ever played. The controls are sluggish, the level design is mediocre at best, and the physics are just god-awful. Not to mention Sonic 4 just takes level themes from the classic games and straight up plagiarizes them. Splash Hill, Lost Labyrinth, etc. Just so happens that the second zone is based off Casino Night from Sonic 2. Now, I know what you're thinking. Yeah, this may be a pinball-themed level, but it's not actually pinball, right? And that's where you're wrong. In the mobile version of Sonic 4, Casino Street Act 2 is replaced with a pinball score challenge. I'm gonna kill myself. One quick search on the App Store and a payment confirmation later, and we can finally see how this pinball table stacks up to the others. I can see why they cut it from the console version. This is the worst one yet. I'm not even joking. The controls? Awful. Physics? Non-existent. Music? Don't even get me started! So the goal is to get 100,000 points by hitting bumpers and using the slot machine. But the problem is that there is zero skill needed. Literally, you can just keep going in this loop over and over and over, and the level is done in minutes. While it's not as frustrating as some of the others we've talked about, it's still just brain-dead nonsense. F tier. Following the disaster of Sonic 4, Sonic Colors marked a new direction for the series, not only in tone but in polish as well. This trend continued with Sonic Generations, a massive celebration of the series with levels and bosses from past games. Now, you'd think Sega would capitalize upon this with DLC level packs or something, right? Because despite how good Generations is, it's still a really short game, and DLC like this could give us extra content to mess around with. So what did we get instead? Pinball. I just don't get this company. Sega, you had the perfect opportunity to make tons of extra money, and you just threw it all away for pinball. Why? All that aside, let's just get to the actual game. Well. Before even starting, there's a little tutorial to explain the mechanics. If only that was in the other games. Moving on to the actual table, it's pretty well designed. There's lots of alternate areas, and the graphics are top-notch. Everything is so detailed without sacrificing playability. For the gameplay, we actually have a couple options. Like other levels and Generations, we can play as either Classic Sonic or Modern Sonic here, with each one having different abilities to help gain more points. Classic Sonic can use the Spin Dash, which stops all movement and lets you launch in any direction up to 3 times. This is a lifesaver, and much better than Modern Sonic's ability. He just gets the boost, and while it's good for destroying these barriers, it's not nearly as useful as the Spin Dash. Similar to Sonic Adventures Pinball, this table also has a slot machine gimmick. By collecting these gold tokens and taking them to the slot machine, you can have the chance to spawn in hundreds of rings that add tons to your score. And given that the journey to the slot machine is pretty difficult by itself, I think giving you lots of points is a fitting reward. Oh, and I almost forgot to mention the physics. To be honest, they feel perfect. There's barely any awkwardness or slowdown, just smooth, fast, and controllable. And that's the Pinball DLC. I didn't go in expecting much, but I was pleasantly surprised with what Sonic Team did here. S tier. 2013 was an interesting year for Sonic, to say the least. Riding on the high of Colors and Generations, Sega struck a deal with their old rival Nintendo to make the next 3 Sonic games exclusive to the Wii U. Since the console version of Generations never made it to Nintendo systems, this was Sega's chance to show Mario fans exactly what makes Sonic unique. So then they released Sonic Lost World. This game screams the opposite of originality at every corner. Just look at these world themes. Grass, desert, snow, beach, jungle. This is just New Super Mario Bros. Okay, it's not all stale though. While most levels follow this generic format, there are a couple stages here that really show the potential of this gameplay style. Not this one though. Frozen Factory Act 3 is kinda unique. It's another casino level. Again. But I'm not here to talk about the design. I'm here for the pinball, so let's see how this one fares. There are 2 pinball tables here, one that's mandatory and one that's for an optional red ring. While both boards are small, they work in this game's favor due to the zoomed in camera. Even the physics aren't half bad either. So the goal here is to collect enough points to open the exit. In the first table, it's really easy to do. Just as simple as launching to this point multiplier and dropping down to the exit. The second board is a bit different though. Instead of just one table, it's almost 3 stacked on top of each other. Now, this isn't a bad idea in concept, but the zoomed-in camera creates a lot of screen crunch that can lead to some unfair deaths. Sonic's weight is also kind of wonky. I know I said the physics are decent, but Sonic feels a bit heavy here. Okay, so you know how pinball tables are at a slant, right? You know, so the ball doesn't immediately drop? Well, here, it feels like that crap is at a 90-degree angle. He falls way too fast, and it's really hard to react sometimes. Another weird quirk about this table is how the point system works. You would think that getting a jackpot here would earn you tons of points, right? Instead, it gives out rings. Now, this doesn't seem bad, until you realize that rings don't give you any points. Of course, you could farm extra lives here, but the game itself already hands out plenty. As a whole, these tables are good, they just have a lot of small issues that bog down the experience, much like the base game of Lost World. A tier. We're in the home stretch now, fellas. Only one more pinball table to go. After a 5-year-long wait, Sonic was finally back with an all-new 3D title, Sonic Frontiers. This ditched the hallway design of past games in favor of an open world, completely free to run around in.
You stray from the path.
Well, mostly free. Throughout the story, your main goal is to collect Chaos Emeralds to fight the Titan at the end of each island. You'll do this by beating cyberspace missions, fishing, or partaking in one of the many mini-games featured here. And you guessed it, one of them is Pinball. Let's talk about it. So, Sonic and Tails need to make this volcano erupt to get rid of the mist obscuring the third Titan. And after going inside it, you find Pinball. For some reason. Alright, after that short cutscene, it's time for some pinball action, baby. Wait. What is that score requirement? Yes, to complete this, you need 5 million points. Though, it isn't as bad as you think. This pinball table uses a multiplier system, where by collecting rings, and especially red star rings, your score multiplier will increase. This makes getting 5 million points a lot easier, but there is a slight issue. If you lose a life at any time, the multiplier will reset to 0. This really sucks, because it can take a while to level up the score multiplier, so you're probably better off restarting. Now on to the physics. I don't even know how to explain it. They're kinda floaty, but also heavy? I noticed that the ball just loses all horizontal momentum when it falls, and that's really jarring. When it's rolling down to the flippers, it feels almost automated in a way. So yeah, overall, nothing terrible, but there's a lot of glaring issues here. B tier. And that's all of them. While there's definitely a lot more misses than hits, most of these are still pretty decent. If there's anything I've learned from this, it's that pinball in Sonic games really is a unique concept. However, it's much better for these pinball elements to support platforming rather than being completely separated. Though, with the open zone direction the Sonic series is shifting to, I doubt we'll see anything pinball related for at least a while. Thank you for watching the video. If you're new here, consider liking and subscribing if you enjoy what I make. I also stream every once in a while, so be sure to check those out as well. In the meantime, I hope y'all have a great day. See ya! Okay, so this video took a lot longer to make than I expected. There's definitely a bit of procrastinating there, but also just, life, stuff going on, I'm tired. But yeah, besides all that, I'm glad I could finally get this out, and I hope you guys really liked it, so yeah. Hopefully my content will be a bit more consistent now, but there's no guarantee. So yeah, anyways, see you guys. Goodbye!